Okay, it's time to add the belly patch to our Kawandi. You can see here I've decided to use a pink fabric, and I am just looking for something to kind of echo those corners and pull those colors back in, because I think that's the only place I've used the pink colors on this piece. So I'm going to hold my fabric over the top and make sure that I cut out a patch that is more than large enough to cover everything. Then I'm just going to go over and kind of finger press the corners and get some extra pins together. And I've got the edges folded here and ready. And I'm just going to start laying it in place and making sure that I'm covering up everything that I want to cover up. So you can see sometimes it takes a little bit of fiddling, a little bit of thinking. I'm going to tuck this little edge under here so that it's not having any kind of raw edges sticking out. And I'm pretty tolerant of not having everything at perfect 45-degree angles. Although I do want to have it pinned in place so it doesn't shift and expose anything as I'm stitching. All right, I wish I should have had this slid down a little bit or a wider view so you can see what I'm doing. But I'm just tucking other pieces of fabric in over here so that I can cover the whole thing. A couple more pins. All right, and I'm going to rethread my needle because, of course, I pulled my needle off the thread. And I'm just going to start stitching. And I'm not quite ready to be on the belly yet, but I'm ready for the belly to be incorporated. All right, so now you can see what I did. I love teaching, and sometimes I forget that I need to zoom the camera out. I guess I should have it up a little higher for clarity. Being a quilting teacher and a good videographer are two different jobs. All right. So you can see there's a lot of bulk on these corners. So there's, 4 layers for that fabric and a couple of layers for the fabric underneath, and then the one that I kind of pinched in at a different angle. So I do, go in and out one stitch at a time here because it's just too hard to load all the stitches on. And my stitches end up getting really, really big if I try to rock the needle here. So as it gets really thick and bulky in the center, the process may slow down a little bit for parts of it. But as you can see, you can go along and do what you need to do. So now this is the home stretch. And the belly traditionally is where they would put in, the city people would put in a couple of grains of rice, or I've also read that they will put in some different spices to wish the blessing of a full belly on the recipient of the quilt, which is really a lovely tradition. But I have a hard time wrapping my head around putting any kind of food in my quilt. However, if I want to carry this blessing out and I'm making the Kawandi for a specific person, I might write a little note and tuck it inside in the belly, to give a blessing in a culturally appropriate way for myself. So maybe a little scrap of paper or something that says, I love you, or something like that. Would just be so sweet to tuck in there, and only I would ever know that it was there, which I kind of like. But so we're just going to continue stitching around. And I'm adding this narration afterwards because I forgot to say anything. because I actually was really relaxed and enjoying the process at this point. But it is very hard for me to watch myself sew and not be sewing. So I hope you are also stitching along as you watch, because for me, that's my favorite part of the process. Okay, so I'm starting to attach the belly, and as I go along, I use my needle and I make sure I tuck things under. I also try pretty hard to get that first stitch on any patch to have the needle really close to the edge so everything is really secure. I don't like having anything flopping around later on. And you can see that this row of stitching is very, very close to the previous one. That's fine. Sometimes my rows are very close to each other. I think the security of the patches is more important to me than having my rows spaced out perfectly. And this one I needed to cover some other pieces up, so I didn't, have room to move it around more. Had I planned it a little bit better in advance, that would have been okay. But that's not how I like to do my Kawandi pieces. All right, so I am going to say that I am just going to stitch around my belly patch. I'm going to make sure that that my stitches secure the whole thing. I'm going to consider how secure my patch is to be more crucial than how spaced out my rows are. So you'll see that I stitch right up to the edge, and then I just continue going around I always want to say circles, but they're rectangles. But I'm going to keep going around until my patch is completely finished. Okay, you can see that I'm on the last patch of my Kawandi. I've added this part that we call the belly. I did not put anything inside of it. I'm just going to stitch it up.
as I'm going, there are lots of layers right here in the middle of overlapped fabrics and folded fabrics. So sometimes it's kind of tough to get the needle through, but it's so close to being finished. And this is where I get really excited because already I'm thinking about which things I want to make next, what I want to try to make next. You can see there's a little bit of bunching even just in this center patch. And that's, there's a couple of different reasons for that. A lot of it is the bulk of the pieces that are behind it, but some of it is also that I just wasn't being super careful as I pinned it on to smooth it down all the way, and it's fine. I'm happy with this. When you wash it, a lot of that bulk goes away too. But what I do is I just keep stitching down towards the middle until I've really kind of tamed it and chased it all into a really small spot. Excuse me. But I'm going to keep going, and of course I'm just running out of thread here, which feels like it always happens. If I could just stitch with a thread that was 2 miles long, I think my life would be much better. If you've enjoyed me before I go, my website is dizzyquilter.com, dizzy like a dizzy blonde, which I'm not, although I am quite hyper and do hop from one thing to the next fairly often. So at the end of the Kawandi, I am going to take my needle to the back and flip it all over, and then just tie a knot in the thread. And I'm off camera, I apologize. This is just a single knot. Here, maybe I did it. You just, a single knot, and then you guide the knot down the thread with your needle. Pull the thread through and pop it in. And that way the knot is hidden. I trim my thread off, and I'm done. And here's my Kawandi, and I'm going to pull my camera up and up a little higher when I notice I still can't see the whole thing. There we go. And that's my finished piece that we've done today. Thank you so much for following along. This is the back. If you want more from me, I said it already, my blog is dizzyquilter.com. I'm on Instagram at Jen Strouser, and I'm also on YouTube, and I think that's Jen Strouser too. But I hope to see you around, and thank you again. This has been so much fun.